It's no secret that the British boater's pretty much in love with the open boating experience, the kind you get on a traditional rib. And it's also no secret that the modern marine market seems pretty much obsessed with the volume and stability and running efficiency of the modern power cat. But what if you could combine those happy traits in a single platform? What if you could get a 27-footer that would happily seat 14 people in genuine comfort and still cost you less than £100,000 plus VAT? That boat would look something like this. Now, I appreciate that this is a pontoon boat. It's for fun with your family and your friends on inland waterways predominantly, but the guys at RBS Marine tell me that after the Southampton boat show they brought it back in a force 4 wind over tide to Portsmouth and had a lot of fun with it. So we've built it out beyond the heads onto some more exposed water so we can have a little play. So let's strap this kill cord on. As we do so, it's worth having a little chat about this helm position because it's quite something, it really is. I mean, there's not a lot of equipment at the dash, a couple of speakers and a big kind of vertical display, quite unusual, that pretty much controls all your systems. Aside from that, a couple of cup holders, the steering wheel which is adjustable, the throttle down by your right hand side, and maybe the most relaxed helm position I've ever seen on a sports boat of any kind. It's basically like transferring your living room out onto the water. It's quite something. It's quite easy, in fact, to forget you're actually on a boat. And I've had a little drive of this boat this morning, and it's the first one ever where I've actually taken my hand off the throttle and steered with the right hand. That's how relaxing it feels. But anyway, I've adjusted that pretty much to my taste. So let's trim her in and get her underway. As you can see, we've got a few swells rolling through. 1 or 2 footers with the odd 3-footer thrown in, so it's a bit of fun. Oh, and I have to say, right from the off, the grunt, yeah, the grunt from that 300 is absolutely brilliant fun. And when you turn across the seas, oh, there's loads of grip. It's quite weird because it kind of feels a little bit like a hovercraft, quite soft and mellifluous, but at the same time you get loads and loads of grip. Also feels a bit like a hovercraft because we're quite elevated from the water's surface. It's a very unusual sensation. But it's actually a much better boat in these seas than you'd expect it to be. Now we're charging out into a bit of a head sea here, keeping her trimmed in, scooting along at about 30 knots and doing a really decent job of staying for the most part pretty dry. What I'll do is I'll turn her slightly across the seas, trim her out a little and get her right up to pace. Now they tell me it should be good for around about 36.5 knots. But it's been in the water since before the Southampton boat show, so we've got a little bit of a beard on this boat, so we're achieving around about 35 knots, but that's a pretty good return. And as I say, the response from this 300 horsepower outboard is absolutely fantastic. Feels like a really efficient running boat, but we don't have it rigged up to show us fuel flow here today, so we don't actually know how efficient it is, but certainly we ought to be anticipating less than 2 litres per nautical mile at cruising speeds. And we have a 200 litre tank here, so of course for a boat of this particular type, which is very much and very exclusively a day boat, that's all the range you really need. What I really like here though is the way this boat grips in the turn. It's tremendous fun, so I'll have a little go at that if the seas allow me. We'll swing around to starboard first. Loads of grip and loads of responsiveness from that outboard. Just makes it a really good fun boat to drive. We'll trim her in and swing around into the head sea again. And as you see, she really does turn. It's just great fun. Right, I'm having a great time. Now this is a Category D boat. It's basically designed as a safe for inland waterways for gentle days out in the sun with your friends and family on lakes and so on. But certainly if it were my boat, I'd take advantage of all the fun that's on offer here and take it out to sea occasionally, just to get a little bit closer to the elements. There's no screen here, there's nothing to stop the elements from hitting you square in the face, and that for me is a big part of the fun here. One of the other brilliant things about the way this boat is set up, about those 3 logs, is the fact that not only do you get that lovely steady tracking and that heavyweight carrying capacity, but you also get virtually 0 weight. I mean, when you've got boats on either side and you're crawling up the river with the speed limits, you can sit at 6, 8 knots and there's virtually no weight whatsoever coming out the back of this boat, so you're not going to upset anyone at all. Still, there are tidal restrictions here at Bird and Pool Marina, so we're heading back in now, back into the types of water for which this boat was actually built, so we can have a closer look at the details. Notwithstanding the leisure facilities elsewhere on this platform, this back end is absolutely one of my favourite parts of the boat. So you basically have a reversing backrest at this stern bench, which means you can expand this sunbed and create room to really lounge in comfort and face aft. I reckon there's space for maybe 3 or 4 people back here. And it's safe too, nice and secure. We've got this wraparound guardrail, so you'd be perfectly happy with your kids spending their time back here. We also have this little unit here on the port side. We've got a raw water shower here, so you can wash yourself down on that aft swim platform. Also got a couple of cup holders with neat little LED lights, plus USB points. Another 12-volt point, plus the stereo remote back here too. And what I really like as I'm sitting back here is the fact that because the deck level is relatively elevated and the outboard engine set relatively low down and far back, the views all round are absolutely fantastic. And this section actually hides an additional little trick. If we hinge up this part of the sunbed, beneath here there's a bracket that elevates and a cover that goes on top of that. So you've also got a nice little private changing area for when you come out of the water. But of course, the fun of the drive aside, one of the key benefits of this, just like a regular cat, is the fact that you can just nose it into a beach. And with those triple hulls, it sits nice and steady. And of course, on this particular boat, we got this massive gate at the bow too. Open that up, and it's as easy as pie just to step down. And there we are. It really couldn't be easier. The basic principle behind a pontoon boat is to have a couple of hulls, or logs as they call them, and as you can see, that is basically an aluminium cylinder filled with nothing but air, so plenty of buoyancy in that, and then to put a deck across it, a single level open deck for maximum volume, maximum space inboard. Now on this particular model we also have an additional third hull, a third log right up the centre, so that improves buoyancy, uprates it to enable this boat to carry up to 1.35 tonnes or 14 people, so it really does a fantastic job in that regard. And if we move to the forward end, you'll see that those logs are terminated with very finely angled nose cones. That's obviously to soften the ride, and on the sides here you've got additional fins for a bit of extra spray deflection, and they do a very effective job, I have to say. We also have this little lip, which is kind of reminiscent of a forward bathing platform, a forward swim platform, but it basically enables you to walk around the front of the boat and tie on your covers and so on. It also enables you to use this central gate at the bow to get on and off a beach very easily. And of course it's the platform for the cleats, which are conspicuous by their absence amidships, but we do have this wraparound fence, as they call it, with stainless steel guardrails, so there's certainly no shortage of places to hang a fender or tie off a line. Now what is quite interesting here, while we're talking about these steel rails, is the variety of building materials we have here. Now as I say, the logs are made from aluminium. The rails here are made from steel. The deck is made from wood topped with aluminium. The helm console, that's made of fiberglass, and the various seat boxes you'll see as we go around, well, they're made from polyethylene. So it really is quite a mix of materials. It's very different, very distinctive. And that's just one element that makes this boat stand out from the rest of the offerings on the UK market. Another of those is the kind of language we use. So as I say, the hulls are called logs. This wraparound section is called the fence. Everything inside that fence is apparently called the playpen. And when you step on board, you can absolutely see why. Now, the beam is of course critical, just as critical on a pontoon boat as it is on a cat. And here on a 27'5" boat, that's including the engine, so length overall, we have a beam of 8'6", and that's not huge, but it does mean that in principle this boat is trailerable, which is great news. What's equally good is the fact that even though it feels like a relatively modest beam, well, we don't have conventional, traditional bulwarks, do we? We just have these very narrow gauge fences, so the entire beam is yours to enjoy on the inside of the boat. This all translates directly into proper usable volume. And more to the point, that beam extends all the way forward in proper traditional pontoon boat style, right to the very forepeak. So it only actually tapers in the last few inches beyond that cleat. So it really is an enormous space, an entirely untapered rectangle of seating. Now, while we're up in this big squared off bow space, it's worth having a look at some of the finer details because they're really quite impressive. And for me, that all starts with this forward gate. And as you can see, there's a really wide central companionway and a very simple catch at this gate. Big aperture there, so you can jump down into the water, or you can use this to step onto the pontoon or down onto a beach. Close that back up again. While we're looking at the deck, it's worth having a look all the way through because, as I say, it's single level and the boarding point from this port side is absolutely massive. So this provides fantastic freedom of movement on board this boat, and it'd be equally good for wheelchair use as well. So that's a handy touch from Regency, it has to be said. Elsewhere in the bow, storage is really quite impressive too. If I lift this cushion up here, you'll see that we've got lockable storage. As you can see, this is the polyethylene construction I was talking about, very robust and practical. We have one of these lockable compartments on either side, and above that, beneath the backrest as well, you can just one-handed opening, no need to remove any cushions. You've got these little units as well, with a bit of Velcro on the back, so you slot that down behind this part of the seat, and then it sits flush just there between each of the seating sections for additional cup holders. Close that up and move forward. We've got additional storage here, much simpler. Again, polyethylene construction, and a bit more up in the forward spot as well. So storage is fantastic here, and it gets all the better when you move aft and have a look beneath the deck. Now, as I say, this is a boat with 3 logs, so what we're doing here is basically delving down into the middle of those. It's beautifully lined and it's extremely large. Now, each of these logs is broadly divided into 1.5 metre sections for safety and security, and there's just enormous space in here. It's very good. Plus access to a bilge pump beneath there, down in that central log. Let's close that back up again and move forward to this table, because actually this is quite interesting too. Now, you might anticipate, and I was kind of hoping in some ways, that there'd be some sort of infill here so that we could turn this entire bow space into a sun lounger, but already with this fold down armrest you've got some very attractive spots, one on either side, to sit chaise long style and face forward. Really comfortable places to perch yourself those. But the table, small though it is really quite clever. Now, these cup holders, it's not connected up at the moment, but they have LED backlighting, which is quite attractive. We also got a little USB point here with a rubberized slot for a couple of phones. So that is a useful touch too. And of course, the electricity for that comes via this leg through a little receptacle in the deck. And if we move aft to the cockpit and whip this little cap out of the spot for the aft table, you'll see that here are the little terminals to connect up that power. So it's very simply done. It's a very neat trick that, I like that a lot. What we appear to lack up here though is refrigeration. You'd kind of expect on a 14-man party boat with a bow of that capacity that you'd have some refrigeration space up there. We don't in terms of dedicated spots, but what we do have is plenty of space inside the Helm console for an optional cool box. And if I shut this port gate over and take a look into the aft part of this port seating unit, you'll see we've got another really big space in here on good strong rams. Now that's a really good usable storage space, but again you could use that for a little fridge unit, no problem at all. It's not necessarily on the options list, but the guys here at RBS Marine will be delighted to fit it for you. Back here in the central part of the cockpit, in traditional pontoon boat style, we have a really serious helm station over on the starboard side with an even more serious skipper's chair. Now this really is quite a piece of work. The cushioning is so deep and so luxurious. It's a gorgeous place to sit. It's a really generously proportioned seat as well. No matter how big you are, you're going to fit in there. And we've got a couple of really substantial fold down armrests as well. So it's a really comfortable place to be. It also goes fore and aft. It goes up and down and it rotates to face that aft bench. So in tandem with this port co-pilot's seat, you've got a great place there in the centre of the cockpit under the shelter of this standard bimini just to dine for 5 people. Really good spot that. And also, if you want to take it easy or supplement those aft loungers, we've got this little lever here. If we pull that and lean back, the entire backrest reclines so you can have a proper doze. It's very, very decadent indeed. We've also got some really good storage inside this aft bench. As you can see, we've got the starter and domestic batteries there, but we've also got good capacity here, plus this space does go a good way aft, so plenty of space in there. To port of that, we've got a little built-in integrated storage unit and another one on the starboard side, but what we really like here is the fact that, in a rare treat for me, my litre bottle that I carry around on sea trials actually fits in these cup holders, which I've not actually seen before at a boat test. So well done, Regency. There are a couple more cup holders to the side of the co-pilot's seat as well. But if we make our way further aft to the business end of things, past this really excellent lounging station at the back end, beyond the fence which ends here and out onto this swim platform, you'll see we've got a little point there in the deck for a ski pole, and as a boat that can do 35 knots and has all kinds of pickup, there's plenty of opportunity to use that. We also have a swim ladder on the port side, and here we have Mercury's 4.6 litre V8 300. Now that's a pretty good choice for this boat, get loads of performance with it, but there are plenty of options. You can spec this boat up with the 350 horsepower 5.7 litre V10. You can spec a slightly less powerful version of this particular block, the 250. We could even go for the 3.4 litre V6 200. Certainly the website for Regency has you believe that the outboard options go from about 200 to 400 horsepower, but actually here in the UK, if you want to just use this boat for inland waterways, you want to pootle about without burning too much fuel, then this can also be spec'd with a 60 horsepower outboard for speeds in the region of 12 knots and the kind of fuel efficiency that will have you running all day for virtually no money at all. In all cases though, as a 3-log pontoon boat, the draft on this thing only amounts to about 40 centimetres. So in terms of investigating drying out creeks and tidal estuaries, it really would do quite some job. In spite of a really generous standard features list, I would want to add a few options to the base package just to uprate the versatility, really maximise its leisure potential. I'd want a chart plotter, of course, for the helm station. I'd want a forward bimini so you could shelter this forward seating as well as the aft cockpit. I'd want a second table so you don't have to shunt this one fore and aft depending on where you are on the boat. I'd invested in a couple of clip-on barbecues to take advantage of those peripheral steel rails so you could cook on board as well. And I'd also add some cool boxes, plus potentially a proper fridge built into the aft end of this port seating unit. But look, even in this base configuration, this is about as much fun as I've had on any sea trial in the last 10 or 15 years, because this boat is as effective as it is unpretentious, and it's as fun to drive as it is to be on board. Now, I know that pontoon boats are not particularly sexy, and I know that they're new to what is a relatively conservative UK market, but if you can just have the courage to take a tangent, as RBS Marine has done, and test this boat out, you won't be sorry you did.